out of my league. I don't know how to flush. Do they flush or do they auto flush? I don't know. So now I have bugs falling on me too. I'm just, you know, it's that kind of night.
Yeah.
You know, so I just imagined, okay, well it's flushing now and I'm walking away.
It was auto flush.
It was auto flush to me, yeah. So, but I think making a choice, that's all. Making a choice, that's clear.
Yeah. And the best I knew to do was turn on a faucet. It was like every bathroom has a faucet. Right? So, yeah.
But one thing I'll tell you is we have absolutely no idea what we're going to do. I mean, I never know what I'm going to do or what I'm going to say. And even the musical part of it, which is something we only started a couple years ago, you know, we have no idea what's going to come out. So I think it's a lot about just trusting yourself. And also technique and training goes a long way, because once you have technique and training, then you can sort of relax a little bit and understand certain things and manipulate it if you're not sure what you're doing a little bit. So I think training is important, yeah.
How often does, it doesn't have, if it's just for the U2, that's fine, but when you're performing improv, like how often is it that somebody makes a suggestion and then your partner on stage starts to act out a scene and you think to yourself, oh my goodness, that was exactly what I was thinking too?
How often?
How often? Like, is that every time? Is that never? Is that...
For me, almost never.
Okay.
I'd say 9 times out of 10, she'll make a statement. We call it naming it. She'll name it. Like, we're in the restroom now. Okay, we're in the restroom. Or she'll do something that infers that we're in the restroom. That's really specific. I may think we're in a pizza parlor in Italy. You know what I mean? I may be in a totally different world, but I have to, once it's named, it's that specific, whether it be through action or word, then I have to support my partner and go along with it. Yeah, for it to work. True. So almost never. That's a great question. Well, how about for you? Is it a surprise when I name something and are you thinking?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. 95% of the time
it's a surprise.
Yeah.
Even by now, we know.
No, it's true.
Okay, do you ever have that instance on stage where suddenly you recall something, like you're starting out a scene and then you recall something that happened at another show that you did together, and you do the same thing? Have you ever had that happen?
No. To be absolutely honest with you, no. And you think it would after hundreds and hundreds of shows, you know, hour-long shows. You know, you think it would, but
you're doing it right.
it's fresh. It's fresh.
Right.
Good question, Julie. Julie.
Have you ever had an angry heckler?
No.
Like just a jerk or someone?
No.
No. Drunk people.
Yeah.
How does that work out? Are they just more vocal?
Mostly we just hear, oh, and then, you know, we ask for suggestions, so we just ignore it. Yeah. Just drunk people that are very boisterous. You know, we started at Gotham Comedy Club in New York City, and that's a really hardcore comedy club where people expect you to deliver. So when you perform there, you know, you're performing in the same building as, you know, Dave Chappelle and people like that over the years who, you know, I mean, and so people expect this level from you. And, you know, we just came in there and we just did our thing, you know, and said, okay, we're just going to be true to who we are. And luckily, we didn't get anything thrown at us. But it's a tough crowd, I think, in the comedy circuit. The comedy clubs are a very different crowd than theaters or other performing arts spaces, like comedy show spaces. Comedy clubs are, I think, a very different environment. It's a little more fast-paced. They expect you to deliver the joke.
At the outside edges of the places you played, like what was, this was the smallest, or this was the hugest, this was the most dramatic, because it isn't always played for laughs, or is it?
Right, no.
So like, name maybe a couple places at the outsides of this type of performance, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have you ever played at a nursing home? Have you ever played at a prison? Have you ever played at...
Oh, that's a great
You know,
question.
just stuff like that, like where are the different places you played in?
We've never played at any of those types of places now.
With our improv group, we played in other things separately as performers, like fringe festivals, alleys, various locations.
Oh,
I
like
performed one time in a U-Haul, a U-Haul truck.
Voluntarily?
There's a set. Hey, take what But no, actually, I think it's always been either a clear defined space.
Or if you had.
No, actually.
Can I ask one from
Yeah.
fellow? Like I met a guy who started a Christian Bible camp improv group, and it was super successful, and I was amazed at this, and he's a cool guy and really funny and smart. Have you played like this is a very, you go in, your group would go in, this is a very specific audience. Wow.
Yeah, I think just the,
You go.
yeah, go ahead. I think it was a particular demographic, yeah.
There was one performance that we had at a particular theater in New York that was at the end of a play festival. It was a theater company that focuses on doing all original work, and they had a company called Artistic New Directions. Keep your ears peeled for them, they're awesome. And they had invited us to come play the end of a particular evening, and that audience was much more of a serious theater-going crowd. So
yeah, like Lincoln Center.
It sort of left us the freedom to not do comedy improv, but we could do a bit more improvised theater, which left it open to doing like sort of Brechtian type stuff and
more serious scenes that were really, truly,
Yeah.
very serious, and people were very seriously, connected to it.
Yeah.
And they thought it was more, I think, theater than avant-garde or postmodern, more abstract stuff. They were expecting more of a linear. But no, it would be very interesting to go into, my father goes into the prisons all the time and he performs on the side at night. That's his side job. He's a CEO during the day, and then he moonlights as he sings, and he vaudeville in the family. Cool. All the way back. So he goes into the prisons to life sentencers that have no hope of getting out of prison, and he entertains them and he helps them laugh, and it's something that I think in the future might be really great to do. Yeah, definitely. And that, I think that those sorts of things need to be done. You need to have a different audience too to challenge you. Yeah, great question.
Do you think improv or stand-up comedy is more difficult?
You want me to go and then you go?
Yeah.
Okay. I think stand-up is way more difficult. Improv is easier for me. My experience with improv is way easier because there's someone else there to help me and someone else for me to help and to make the focus about them and not me. So, and also I think with improv and I think also with the type of improv that we tend to do, that the pressure is not necessarily to make people laugh, but rather to just tell a story and discover a story as the moment is unfolding and all of that. Whereas stand-up, it's like, you better make people laugh or you are dead. So that, I would love to try stand-up. I've never done it, but I would love to try it. It just scares the crap out of me.
With improv too, that's great that you touched on that, Cooper, and this is something that came up in the classes today. With improv, you can just be truthful. If you're being truthful in the moment, even if you don't know what you're going to say or what you're doing, if you're just being really truthful and you're in that place of being baffled and not knowing what you're going to do, but just being really honest about what you're doing and committing to it, 9 times out of 10, for some reason, it will work. Whereas with stand-up, I think you need pre-prepared material. You really need to have sat down and written a series of pieces that are really a particular pace and rhythm and topic and subject matter. It's really important, I think. And also relatability, that the best stand-up comics, even though they might be, this is just my subjective opinion, but I think the best stand-up comics, even if they're really brash or really, extreme, they have a level of relatability to you. They're giving you something that you can relate to, on a human level. And that's why you laugh, because you can relate in some way. Even though you're not them and you've never lived where they lived, or there's something they're giving you that. And I think that in improv, you don't have to necessarily have relatability at all. You could just be 2 aliens on a planet fighting over a human that you found, that you put in a jar. You know, and the audience will go, oh yeah, that's right, yeah.
Humans and sharks.
Yeah, yeah. Kyle.
How'd you break into the industry?
It was really hard. It was really hard. Honestly, it took about really over 20 years to get where we did. I think for me, it was a lot of going to shows and seeing what people were doing. Going to theater, going to improv shows, seeing what people were doing, going to comedy shows. Went to many comedy clubs, saw stand-up, saw all different genres, all different types, so that we could, and then taking workshops. We took years of workshops from people, you know, to really hone different techniques and skills. I think it's really about that. And then getting out there and just doing it, even if, you know, the first places we performed were the worst holes in the wall. You know, we barely made any money, you know, it was rough. I mean, you know, we paid our dues. I mean, it was, you know, it's not glamorous. You're one of like 20 acts that night. You know, you've got one bathroom you're all sharing backstage with people you don't know, and one mirror. You know, it's not, it's really, you know, it's like you really have to love it and want to do it. I really think. And if you get out there and, I think seeing other people's work, coming up to them afterwards saying, wow, you know, what you did was incredible, can I talk to you about it for a second? You know, really familiarizing yourself with what's out there and then doing it. Doing it for free, doing it in tiny little holes in the walls, getting yourself out there and seen. And so for us, we were seen, and someone gave us an opportunity. They said, we want you to open for us at Gotham, and that was our first huge gig. And then, so we started getting more opportunities from there. We constantly hustled, constantly. We were constantly calling people, constantly bugging them, constantly saying, if you have anybody calling sick, we're available. If you have anybody that, you know, anything happens to, any last minute cancellations, we're just at the edge of our phone, you know. And so we literally would take our phone everywhere, and if someone called, we were ready to go show up, you know, even if we're in the middle of something else. So I think you gotta really want to do it, because it's definitely not for the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point that you make too, is it's about being ready. And so on that point, a lot of it for me was training, just constantly taking classes, going to workshops, practicing, so that when those opportunities came up and continue to come up, you're ready. You're, you know,
you're really ready. You're not freaking out, going,
yeah.
Oh my God, I've got to carry, you know, an opening act for these people who are well known, and I don't want to make them look bad, you know. So I think you have to also have a certain level of training where you are ready. Because what we do is we make it look very easy, but it's very, very, very hard. What we do is actually, it involves a lot of technical things that you wouldn't know about while you're watching it. You know what I mean? You say, oh, it looks so easy, they're just doing this. And it's actually, it took us a long time, I think, to feel like we had something to offer. People.
That's another thing too, is people ask me sometimes, like when I tell people that I teach improv, they actually ask me, well, how do you teach improv? People just make it up as they go along. What do you mean you teach? So there are actually like specific skill sets, that guidelines that are taught and that are practiced, and again, that gets to being ready. The more you practice those guidelines and skill sets, then when the opportunity comes along, you're ready. So.
We also worked with other people, which is important. We didn't just work with each other.
Right.
So I always encourage my students over 10 years I've been teaching, I say, work with every single person you possibly can. Work with the people that are nothing like you. Work with someone who is the last person you would walk up to and talk to. That's the person you want to work with, because they're going to draw out parts of your psyche that nobody else would draw out. You know, and you're going to draw out parts of their psyche. And it's the same in life, you know. Seek out people that aren't like you. Seek out different people. Broaden your horizons, because you might learn something, or you might expand your consciousness. So I worked in a group called Eskimo Dance, which is a lot of viola spool, and it's a sort of different sort of improv, more storytelling. I did, you know, many New York performances with them, and there's like a group of 12 people, and so 12 of us will be on stage and do various scenes, and what we call heralds, which is like a second city structure of different scenes where you don't know what you're going to do, you just end up in a scene with somebody, and then you come back to that scene in the future, and then further in the future, and you know, you incorporate all these things into it, and things that were said, and objects, and so that taught me to work with discomfort, you know, like people I didn't know, in a not a comfortable situation in front of an audience. So by the time Cooper and I would work together again, you know, it was like, I don't know, you've evolved more. So working with the same person all the time is also not necessarily good. So I would say we would joke with each other, I'm going to cheat on you this weekend, I'm going to go perform with Eskimo Dance or some other group, you know, and one of us would say, right on, you know, go do that, that's awesome, you know. Yeah, no, who is it? No. You know, so we weren't threatened by that, and there are people that are threatened by that, which is not a good sign. Yeah.
When you say that you have to learn techniques or skill sets, give us an example.
An example is if you were learning the basic rules of improv, you would want to understand something like if anyone in the scene with you states an observation, look at that, you know, the army of angry horses tromping toward us with people with swords and sticks on fire. Your partner doesn't want to say,
there are no people on horses with sticks and swords and fire. What are you talking about?
yeah, there are.
No, there aren't.
Don't you see them? Yeah, there are.
I don't see anything.
Yeah, they're there. They're right there. They're coming toward us right
You're
now.
crazy.
So you have nowhere to go. You just shut the person down, and it closes all the doors. It slams all the doors. So they have nowhere to go with you to tell the story. They're not adding information. They're taking it away. So if you're first learning, that's a technique that's really important to understand is the 4 basic, you know, elements. Is always agree. Yes, and who's that handsome guy in the front? He looks great. Is he Prince? What's going on with him? You know, and then you have something to...
I don't see a ring on his finger.
Well, me neither.
I can see it from this far away.
Okay, you take it from behind. I'll go in the bushes. I mean, are we talking about the horse? What are we talking about? So, I mean... yeah, I just said that. Oh, my God. So obviously, you don't edit. You can't edit either. That's the thing. You can't edit. It has to just come right out. Because if you edit, it stops the rhythm of it. It stops the progression. But I think that's important. That's a good question, Gina. And years of training, you know, not just, it's not like you're done. Like, oh, we're good. We don't need any training anymore. We're all set. Right. You know, we still train with our people from Second City and from Jewell School, and we still go back to them and we do workshops because we need to stay fresh. It's an instrument. We need to keep our instrument, you know, fresh. So, yeah.
Did you ever have an instance during whether improv, any show that you guys worked together with, where you had a break in communication? And how did you get out of that situation? Like, how did you push through?
A break, like a misunderstanding?
Like, yeah, like you messed up, technically, I guess.
Oh my gosh, that happens all the time.
But it was obvious to the crowd.
Oh, what I do is, I didn't used to do this, but this is just what I do now. I actually will acknowledge it to the audience because they saw it. So I'll actually give the audience acknowledgement, like, in some way. Like, I know you just saw me do that. Okay, I'm going to do this now. You know what I mean? Because I think acknowledging it, it's like dropping a prop on stage in a regular, you know, a contemporary theater show. You drop a prop. You're not going to pretend that you didn't drop it because the audience all night, all they're looking at is the prop on the floor. Yeah. They're just staring at that damn prop. So I think it's kind of the same thing. It's like, you either acknowledge it, you know, like kind of, you know, you ham it up for a minute, you acknowledge it, you know, oh my God. Or you just keep going and stay in the moment. I mean, that's how I deal with it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we actually had a moment like that at tonight's show. Where?
What was that?
So, there was, I came forward and set up the 2 chairs. And like I was going to be in the crowded airplane. and I came forward and said, okay, can we get a suggestion for a location for these 2 chairs? And I was like, oh, really? Okay. That's what we're doing. And so, like, because I had already, so I was like, oops. All right.
Here we go. And we started a scene and it became a completely different scene. I think you have to let it go, right? You have to let your ego go.
Yeah.
You can't hang on to, no, this is my scene, damn it, I'm at the airport.
Right.
You know, you have to let it go. Like, okay, we're not at the airport. Fine, you know,
like,
that's
yeah,
fine.
all right. Done.
Great question.
Yeah.
All right, so your poster listed a whole bunch of different genres, including like avant-garde and Dada. What are some of the more unconventional things that you've done on stage?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. We've done a lot more absurdism, sounding movement, silent moments where whole scenes where we don't talk at all. You know, we're just behaving, and maybe the behavior is not necessarily linear. You know, telling a linear story. In the vocal patterns, the sounds. Painting a picture that is just much more abstract and not always connecting to anything. So more a series of almost like photographs that don't match, that don't have a particular genre, or a collage of some kind, or something like that. So sometimes we will not explain to the audience what just happened, or who we are at all, you know, and we might not even really know who we were, or what really happened, but we know something happened. And so we just commit to it, whatever that is. So those forms are about just pure expression, you know, pure unadulterated expression. So I think the body, the movement, we've done things like strip away layers of clothing, more movement-oriented stuff, more sound-oriented stuff. In the music stuff, sometimes it's gotten very abstract, very, you know, dissonant, disconnected. Yeah, that's the best way I can describe, yeah, how we've done that. Cool. Repeating things, you know, like a la Beckett, or, you know, repeating a word and giving it new meaning each time, you know, something like that. Good questions. Anyone else have a last question before we wrap up?
What's your process of like preparation?
Oh, great question, Spencer. It's changed over the years. It used to be, thank you for coming. Have a great night, and thank you. It used to be, we used to be like athletes, like very rigorous, meeting all the time. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. And I think we hit a point where it was more about learning new things. So I think for me, I started training with new people, learning new things, and then bringing them to Cooper and saying, can you try this? You know, and then trying it in rehearsal. Instead of using rehearsal to try to do the same things, we would inject constantly new things. And go, oh my God, what just happened there? That was crazy. Okay, let's try that again. Let's try that in a show. We did 2 new things tonight that we've never done in the show. I mean, as a starting point. We always have to pick some sort of a starting point, a place to start from, whether it's the 2 chairs moving, or a location that you suggest, or just something that gives us some information that we can use as a launching pad. So tonight, the thing we've never done before is putting the 2 chairs here and asking you for a location, and using the book. We usually just use the book, and we start a monologue from one line. Another thing we did that was new was in the musical theater part, we asked different questions than we ever have before. You know, different things we asked you. You know, so we're always trying to challenge ourselves and use new techniques and new methodologies, or old methods we've never tried. So I think that's the best thing we do in rehearsal now, whereas before it was about more practicing, like starting scenarios, like practicing the starting of them and what that was like, and remembering, having a coach take notes, you know, a real seasoned coach. Because you can't watch yourself. It's impossible. You have to have someone outside of you so you can be free to express, you know, and not be standing outside yourself watching yourself, because then you're not really truly in the moment, you know, if you're doing that. It's true. Yeah, I think that's the best way I can describe how the rehearsal has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And then processing getting ready for a show, like specifically day of show, that's changed over the years that we've been working together too. Because like it used to be that we sort of would spend, at least my memory, which is a little weird sometimes, we would spend like gobs of time together on the day of show to really connect and really make sure that we were like in the same And it seems like over the years we've gotten a little bit more like taking a little bit more alone time prior to getting on stage.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And then just before coming on stage, connecting
We have
with
a
each
moment
other
together.
for a couple of minutes, and
Yeah.
then, you know, which I think is cool. Like for me, it's cool because it allows, I think both of us the time to like have separate experiences and observations during the course of a day, and then
Come together.
and have a common experience. So
I do think it's important before you perform with someone on this level of intimacy where you don't know what you're going to do and you're really trusting them and you're really putting yourself out there, you know, that you connect with them in some way before the show. Whether hold hands in a circle or hold hands with each other. I think I do that with all my cast because I think it's really important when I'm directing. I do that because I think it's really important for people to feel each other's presence and energy and that positive support that people have for you. And you feel that, you know. We imagine things like creative visualization that you do when you meditate, things like that, like roots coming out of your legs into the ground. That's a very grounding, meditative exercise for people that have panic attacks or have anxiety, or actors. Same thing, no. You know, that you need to feel grounded. So we had a very full day. We taught, you know, 2 classes today. We had lunch, then we ran around for dinner, then we came back. Then we were, you know, setting everything up with Nathan and Professor Wyman and Tony and Professor Maglione and everyone. And you know, that's a lot of movement, right? You don't always have time to really. Okay, so we took some time up in the dressing room to do that. You know, we took 15 minutes or so to just look in the mirror and relax your body and do the exercises that you know how to do, which are really important. I think you have to be a very sensitive person to perform, to put yourself out there. An extremely sensitive person. And being sensitive is a good thing. I think the best performers sometimes are like overly sensitive people. Because you feel the world in a different way, in a much more intense way. And that's you know, I think that's a true artist. So when Cooper and I first started, I was the one off on the rails, like doing crazy stuff. And she was the one standing there on stage, perfectly still, like reeling me in the beginning, a long time ago. That's what our MO sort of was. And I think we've reached a point where now we're more on the same page. And she's not responsible anymore for reeling me in because I've learned that that's not good. You know, that I have to pay attention to my partner. And give and take is very important, which is also a technique. Give and take. And so she's also learned to do things that she didn't do before. And
I
so
sang
it's
opera tonight.
I mean, for her to sing opera tonight, let me just tell you something. That was shocking to me. I've known her over 20 years, and for her to get on that microphone and sing like that for the first time tonight like that was like unbelievable because of the level of anxiety she has with singing. So, you know, I mean, that was amazing. So I think, you know, you grow, you just learn, you grow, you know, and you go into a place that's scary, and that's okay. If you have people to support you and you're working in a safe environment, in a healthy environment with people that are solid, and you know you can trust them and rely on them, you know, you can grow amazingly. And I don't think you have to be really good at something to be successful at it. I don't think you have to be, I've ever taken 2 singing classes in my entire life. And I didn't sing in front of people until about 10 years ago. But I did equity musicals where I was cast in singing roles, and I had to sing. I was like, okay, well, it's either that or I don't work. So I did it. But you know, I had to work really hard to get okay with getting in front of you all and all of New York and singing something I'm making up. I mean, and sing it decently in some way. I mean, that's petrifying. It's very petrifying. So it's not easy, you know, it's not. So I say, if something is scaring you, try it anyway, do it anyway. You might find that when you break through that wall of fear, you probably find you're better at it than somebody else just because you're willing to take risks. Not because your voice is better or, you know what I mean, just that you're willing to take risks. So you'll get cast or you'll get chosen for a project because people see your level of risk-taking, commitment. I only got a couple singing roles because, you know, I messed up and I tripped over the chord and I did something funny in the audition. It was a terrible audition one time I had. I was really sick. and I was singing, you know, like Broadway song, you know, Broadway. And they cast me because I was funny, because I tripped over the board and I was like, and they were like laughing, you know, they weren't even listening to my voice. They knew I could carry a tune. And I got cast because, you know, because I didn't trip over the chord and then say, oh, sorry, there's a chord there. Do you see that chord? It's in my way. You know, I just played it off, like yeah, I meant to do that. I did it on the chord. You know, so I think you have to really like take risk and just, you know, fall on your face, act like an idiot. Don't be afraid to do that, and people will give you opportunities because they see that you're brave. You know, there's a question back here, maybe one more, and I think we need to.